Have you ever at night, in a desolate, dark place where there are no street lights or artificial lights of any city, lifted your head to the sky and looked at length at the stars flickering inside that pitch-black void? You know that strange, chilling feeling of insignificance you feel inside your chest at that moment, faced with that cold, silent, endless, and mind-boggling vastness of the universe. You feel in all your cells just how fragile, how meaningless, and transient human beings are. Here, humanity, since those first primitive and dark days it existed on our planet, has always experienced the same terror piercing to the bone, the same deep helplessness before that immense chaotic universe that does not care about us even a tiny bit, because nature was cruel, wild, and what tomorrow would bring was a colossal, lethal uncertainty. When will it rain? When will drought knock on the door? When will we harvest the crops we sowed? Or when that relentless, freezing winter comes, will we be able to survive together with our family? Here, astrology is the oldest, most magnificent, and perhaps the most poetic defense mechanism that human beings produced against that overwhelming helplessness, that dark uncertainty, in order to protect their own sanity. Just imagine, everything began thousands of years ago, in those scorching, vast deserts of Mesopotamia, with the Babylonians looking at the night sky and searching for a pattern, an order inside that chaotic darkness that would make them feel safe. For them, the stars were not celebrity, cheap fortune tellers whispering about that daily love life you read from your smartphone today, while sipping your morning coffee, minor glitches at the workplace, or which color you should focus on. No, the sky for them was a colossal, flawless clock that had to be read line by line and memorized for the sake of survival, a coded, lethal warning board sent by nature to the kings on earth. A strange alignment of Venus in the sky, the red glow of Mars, or the sudden darkening of the sun during the daytime were not seen as simple natural phenomena. These were divine messages determining the harvest time, the outcome of a great war at the doorstep, or the bloody destiny of an entire empire. In fact, this belief was engraved into humanity's genes in such a deep-rooted and unshakable way that centuries later, even in times when science and reason were thought to have reached their peak, the world's most powerful leaders came to take their steps by looking at that sky again. I am not just talking about ancient times, mythological gods, or those primitive periods of swords and shields. In the tensest days of the Cold War, lived under the shadow of nuclear missiles that could destroy the world with a single button. Did you know that even the President of the United States of America, Ronald Reagan, who was considered the leader of the free world, while signing that historic nuclear arms limitation treaty with the Soviet Union, received approval from the White House's secret astrologer, Joan Quigley, to determine the takeoff time of his plane and the exact minute the treaty would be signed? Colossal humanity, even while holding the trigger of a power that could turn the world into ashes in seconds, had awaited approval from gas masses billions of kilometers away with that primitive and helpless fear of uncertainty. But over time, this ancient calendar of agriculture and kingdoms began to change shape with the human ego's insatiable, arrogant desire to be at the dead center of the universe, with the philosophical world of the ancient Greeks, the Hellenistic period, and Alexander the Great's conquests crossing borders and continents. That great, colossal celestial system gradually became individualized and ordinary, especially with that famous work named Tetrabiblos, written by the famous mathematician Ptolemy. That magnificent thought that the stars care not only about kings, wars, epidemics, or giant empires, but also about the ordinary person on the street, the merchant in the market, the farmer in the field, namely you yourself, was placed into a flawless and highly convincing pseudo-scientific sheath. Human beings now thought they were the masters, the leading actors of not only the ground they walked upon, but also that vast sky. At that time, until Galileo, who slapped us in the face with the fact that the earth is not the center of the universe, and that we are just an ordinary piece of rock revolving around an ordinary star, astronomy, and astrology were like two siblings tightly clinging to each other, feeding from the same table. However, when Galileo turned his primitive telescope to the sky and brought mathematics, experiment, observation, and that brutal, cold reality into the matter, things changed forever. While astronomy solved that flawless, clockwork-like real mathematics of the sky, astrology, with its structure based solely on interpretation, human emotion, belief, and psychological manipulation, was kicked out of the scientific world forever with the Age of Enlightenment. Following this historic separation, astrology suffered a great intellectual collapse, became confined to dark rooms, and faced oblivion until the 1930s, the darkest days of the world, when the Great Depression and that relentless speed and stress brought by the modern world pushed people back into that deep helplessness. In those years in England, that famous, shocking prediction made in the newspaper by a highly intelligent and opportunistic astrologer named R. H. Naylor through the birth of Queen Elizabeth's sister, Princess Margaret, which indirectly resulted in the change of hands of the British throne, practically dragged this ancient belief out of its grave. Newspaper owners, immediately noticing this colossal hunger of people for this mystery, this unknown, and that helpless fear of uncertainty, opened their front pages and daily columns to horoscopes just for the sake of increasing their circulations. Here, the fuse of that modern astrology craze, that colossal global industry that you read today by scrolling on your phone in the morning while going to work on the subway or bus, an encounter at every corner, was ignited precisely in those days with a commercial intellect, whereas today, under that sharp, cruel light of modern astrophysics, we can prove scientifically very clearly that those ancient zodiac belts have already shifted places in space over thousands of years, and that due to the Earth's axial tilt, precession, on the day you were born, the sun was not even in that cool, mystical constellation told to you. In fact, we know very, very well that those stars, which are said to draw your destiny, your character, whom you will get along with, and whom you will fight with, have no physical bond with each other, that there are trillions of kilometers of distance between them, and that they are colossal, soulless, dead gas masses burning with nuclear fusion within themselves, which are not interested even a tiny bit in your heartbreaks, your breakups, or your promotion expectations in the office. But then why even in this dizzying age of technology, where reason, logic, and science illuminate everything down to the smallest detail, while we carry supercomputers in our pockets, millions of people in the world cannot take a comfortable breath every morning without reading what those dead planets whisper to them, and at what hours today they should go out. Don't you think this is one of humanity's greatest, most incredible contradictions? The answer to this is not hidden in the rings of Saturn, the orbits of the planets, or retrograde periods. It is hidden in those deep, dark, complex, and actually very cowardly corridors of your own mind. Look, in 1948, a very intelligent man named psychologist Bertram Forer distributes a highly serious-looking personality test to the students in his university class. He delivers the results of the test, personality analyses specially prepared for them inside sealed envelopes, a few days later to the students who took the test with exam stress, and he asked them to rate from 1 to 5 how accurately these written things describe themselves and their inner worlds. In that quiet classroom, the envelopes are opened, and the class's score average rises to an incredible level rarely seen in the history of science, like 4.26. Everyone there is in a state to swear that what is written on the paper mirrors their own soul, secret pains, and vulnerabilities they cannot confess to anyone in a millimetric way. But there is a very cruel, mind-bending prank. Forer actually never even read those long tests. He distributed to everyone the exact same printed text he copied from an ordinary astrology magazine, completely round, open-ended, pullable in any direction, and fitting anyone in the world, such as, sometimes you are extroverted, social, but sometimes you are introverted and cautious. There are moments when you feel people don't really understand you. There is a great potential inside you that you haven't discovered yet, couldn't express outwardly. This flawless, terrifying mind trick, called the Barnum Effect in psychology, is the clearest, most shocking proof of how much the human brain loathes uncertainty, how much it fears chaos, and its effort to create an island of meaning to cling to at all costs in that vast, meaningless sea of nothingness. We want to believe, to cling to the fact that we are special, that we are unique, that there is a script written just for us, with our name, in a corner of this colossal universe. Just think, if you can blame the turn of Saturn, the full moon phase of the moon, or the retrograde of Mercury for those painful failures in your life, those heartbreaking abandonments, those toxic behavior patterns you just cannot get out of, tantrums, or your laziness that prevents you from getting out of bed in the mornings. What a comforting burden is lifted from those tired shoulders, right? You would be saved instantly, in a single magical move, from that heavy soul-bleeding responsibility of confronting your own mistakes, shortcomings, and wrong choices made with your own free will. In psychology, this is called external locus of control. Astrology offers us that narcotic compassion by gently stroking our cheek and saying, "You have no fault, you did your best. But what can we do? Everything was already written up there among those stars long before you were born. You are just a helpless spectator of this great theater." At that moment, this lie, this cosmic excuse, feels so sweet, so warm to you, that it silences all the logic circuits in your brain, and you surrender to that comforting resignation. I can almost hear you objecting inwardly, saying, "But wait, sometimes they really hit the bullseye. What they say comes out word for word." Right at that point, the concept of self-fulfilling prophecy, which is perhaps one of the greatest, most tragic mind games in human history, comes into play. This always reminds me of that legendary scene in the movie Matrix, one of the most mind-expanding works in cinema history. You know, the Oracle turns to Neo in the kitchen and calmly says, "Don't worry about the vase," while Neo, in surprise and completely unaware of anything, panics and turns around saying, "What vase?" He bumps into the vase on the edge of the table and shatters it to pieces. And when he bends down to apologize, the Oracle asks that deep question that bends the brain of Neo and the audience. Now, what's really going to blow your mind later on is, would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything? Or did you turn and break it because I said it? Because I focused your mind on that possibility. Here, modern astrology is exactly like that oracle in the kitchen. The stars do not write our destiny or what we will experience. We just choose to believe that interpretation, that mysterious and fancy prophecy we hear, and program our subconscious in that direction. And we rebuild our life with our own hands, with our own decisions, mostly without even realizing it, in a way that will validate that prophecy. If you are told that you will receive bad news today, you focus only on bad possibilities throughout the day. Interpret the slightest mishap like a disaster, and at the end of the day, turn that prophecy into reality in your own mind. Astrology, which the famous astrophysicist and cosmologist Stephen Hawking called nonsense that has not a single bit of contribution to the working of the universe and has no scientific basis, and Carl Sagan defined as a pseudoscience wonderfully marketed, appealing to people's deepest hopes, darkest fears, and a helpless search for meaning, is actually a mirror projected to the sky of that colossal fear human beings feel against that chaotic life they cannot control, and their power is insufficient for. Human beings find a fake consolation there by projecting their own weakness, their own feeling of insignificance to the sky. But at some point, if you want to mature and truly become free, you have to face that painful, shocking, and ice-cold reality, my friend. The universe does not care about you even a tiny bit. Those cold stars that exploded and went out billions of years ago, whose light has just reached us, do not have the slightest, the tiniest interest in whom you will meet tomorrow, which job you will enter, or why you just cannot find that peace you are looking for. You are the soul, the only one responsible for your own life, your own great disasters, falls, and at the same time, your own magnificent victories. And this reality, this plain truth, might be placing a much heavier burden on your shoulders than that thousands of years old, compassionate astrology lie, that lazy destiny fairy tale. But believe me, it is just as breathtakingly liberating. Searching for a destiny, a sign, a guide in the sky is actually a kind of escape, a way of hiding in a dark corner from that challenging struggle for life on earth, from the responsibility of one's own actions and mistakes. The day you refuse to leave the steering wheel of your own life to those dead, silent stars, trillions of kilometers away. The moment you feel to your bones that you can bind your own wounds only with your own hands, that whether or not you break the vase on that table, whether or not you end that toxic relationship, or whether or not you go after your dreams, depends entirely, but entirely on your own will, your courage. Right at that moment, you truly begin to live. And never forget this: a story you will write with your own mistakes, your own courage, your own hands, is much more magnificent, much more real than any lie, any pre-written script the sky will whisper to you. Everything has a story. Thank you for joining Wonderpath. See you on the next journey.